Alrighty, so for week 4 Learn Together, we're going to have 3 parts, 2 coding and 1 about the dev_0, your first development. So let's cover step 1 and step 2 first. So create a new folder in your public called W4, and then copy the code from FizzBuzz and Prime.io and refactor to use this new pattern that we've seen, this try, except, else. Try, except, else. That sounds wrong. Finally, no, I think it is. Anyway, I'll double check that pattern, right, that we've seen. Again, this was the second video we watched for our code up. And you're also welcome to raise your own exceptions, right? So I just want you to implement this pattern into the code that we already have so you get some more experience of doing this. Okay? And then, so that's step 1. Again, you might wonder, well, how many try blocks can I write? Well, you can write more than one, and you can pretty much write as many as you want. You'll have to figure out, based on the way this code is running, how you would accomplish at minimum 1 try block, okay? Try except block. All right, so that's step 1. Step 2, I want you to review this page, which is a documentation page for the exceptions in Python. And they're built in, the ones that are already available for you to use, okay? And the thing is, if you haven't done any reviewing of online documentation, sorry, it can be pretty meaty, and it can take a little while just to get this under your belt, right? So here's what I want you to do. First, spend a little time. This is a pretty good sized page, but read definitely some of this above information. Talks about, in general, this idea of exceptions, which we've already delved into some, how to do a new one based on the original one. But more than anything, what I want you to do is take and select one of these, okay? Now, these base classes, right? So this is the base class, and you do arguments with trace, arithmetic errors. So you have different categories of exceptions here. And some of these are going to be a little more challenging to write up a code example than others. So what you want to do, and here's the deal, I think this is pretty doable, is for each one of us to select a different one, right? And the reason I like that is that we get to see how other people implement these exceptions that are built in, right? And we get to learn more because other people are going to code up something different. Now, my only thing about this caveat here is that if by the time you look at this, some of the more kind of straightforward ones have already been selected and you feel a little like it's way above my head to write a code example, then go do some research. I haven't put it in the writing, but I'm going to mention it here. So that's kind of a fallback. So my first preference is that you actually write some code here. But if you find that it's just like, this was enough for you, and here you want to just do some research, you're welcome to do that. But my preference is that you write some code, because in doing research, right, you'll see and help you deepen the knowledge of how that's done, what that particular exception is used, and what circumstances it used. And because some of that requires some functionality of Python that we haven't looked at, that's why I'm giving the alternative of actually doing research. Okay, and if you do select that option, then make sure you give us links to what you found and and then write up a summary of what you've learned. If you've done code, then your link, right, will be fine to provide for that. You can give us a short description of which one. So before I move over to the last one, let me just show you. So I built the directory. There's the FizzBuzz, and I'm going to do the import I decided after looking at it, that's when I wanted to write some code around. It's not, and I'm not even saying how much code, just the ability to implement something that demonstrates that idea is enough. Okay. Okay, so that's worth 70% of the points. And the rest of the points comes from what we're about this last item and just this added requirement I talked about last time, which is really, when you run your code, your output in the terminal, right? Copy and paste that in here. And then you do need to reply to 2 of your fellow students. So looking at their code, you need to do 1 paragraph for your own reply and then reply to 2 students. Okay, so let me move real quick to the calendar. So the calendar, we are, at the last week of August, moving quickly into September. We have a holiday here. Do know, and let me just do this while we're here, is I do move items due to the following day whenever there is a holiday. But your first dev, and it's dev_0, is due on week 6. Right. And we are, at this point that I'm recording this, we're in week 3, but some of you won't see this until week 4, which would be here. Right. So, it's a couple of weeks away. And the reason I bring it up now is to help you start thinking about it. And the next thing I'll do, actually, I'm going to say a few words about due dates around this. And then I'll actually go over the draft of the requirements that I've done. Okay. So first thing is it's due on the night we normally have a learn together. So this will, and from a points perspective, here's what you can know. Learn togethers are worth 25%. Code alongs are worth 25%. And the devs are worth 50. I mean, that tells you how important they are, how much importance I give to them. So the ability to actually write code that accomplishes a specific thing and demonstrate your skill. Okay. So if you have until this night at midnight, and really till the next morning when I check it, to submit your code. But I'm going to recommend that you do it sooner. And there's going to be what's called code review. So what you have to do is not just submit your code, you actually have to do a session with me where you go over your own code. And yes, it does need to come working, not with errors, because it does hurt you if you bring me code with errors, but it's better than no code at all, of course. But if you come to me earlier in the week, then anything we may find, at least for the second part, you can fix, right? And then resubmit before that night. But if you're working right at the due date, then you will have until the following week to do the code review. But, and here's the key, you can't change your code. You have to do the code review with whatever code you've submitted. So I've set this up to encourage you, obviously, to do this a little early. Okay, so I've been thinking about this. So here's the draft. And there's going to be 2 parts. And the first part is I want you to demonstrate your local dev environment. And what this means is I'm going to give you a pretty straightforward concept, one we have seen more than once and probably more than a handful of times in this class. And I'll say, accomplish this, code this for me. And you'll need to do it, with you and I in a Zoom session. And then when you're done, you have to do the basic Git workflow for this task that I'm giving you. And this will be worth 20 points. Now, I haven't required VS Code and but I can tell you in a code review, the benefits of having an editor that will help you there. I do want you to have the command line Git workflow though. That's what I've been emphasizing. So the first part of our code review, and we have about 30 minutes for each student. Okay, so the first part of it will be you doing this. Now the second part is actually you're going to write some code. Okay, so now what I've done here is I've listed the concepts we've covered in this class. Not really in order, but kind of in order. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a program that implements at least 90% of the different things that we've learned here, okay, in some kind of meaningful way. So what do I mean by that? This means that your code has to have an objective. Like it, and by the way, the sooner you write this objective, the better that's going to be. And that your code accomplishes that directive. Okay, so it's like, here's what I want my code to do. Now I'm going to write the code that accomplishes that using the code that I've learned. And this is the harder part, of course. This is the part where you have to come up with a concept. This is where coming to talk to me about what you're thinking about. These are the parts. And again, this is intended that this is code you write on your own. Okay, because the other thing is you're going to have to walk me through that code. So I am going to be able to know, I will be able to see how well you first understood it, right? So let me just say this, do not use code from the web for this. You and I will know that if you do. And just don't put yourself in that position. Okay, so that's 80% of the points. So again, I've already talked about the timeline, when it's ultimately due, why you want to do it early. I will have code review sessions pretty much anytime you're ready to do it, but I will actually have a schedule that I'll post in here where you sign up for a session. They run about 30 minutes, but what you have to do is if your code, this is what I was talking about. You have to bring me working code. If you don't, it hurts your score, right? And again, this is a little harder because if it's minor stuff, right? Because the idea is for us not to actually be troubleshooting your code. It's for you to actually bring me working code and you walk me through your code and then we have a short discussion about it. Okay? This is this point right here. You'll tell me how it functions and you answer any questions that I have regarding your code. And they will be done, of course, on Zoom. Right, and then I'll have a schedule soon for this. Now, you guys are going to be, both my Python and my JavaScript will be doing this the same week, but of course I'll be offering it hopefully in enough times that work for you. Again, look for that schedule and reach out to me if it's not conducive, and let's figure that out. Okay, so what you want to do here, now that I've discussed this, right, please reply with your questions or comments about this part of the class. Is there anything you'd want me to cover more in depth? And of course, in the coming weeks, I'll be talking about this. And of course, I'm going to do this work too. And I'll be looking at my own output here. Okay, so this was the last part of this, right? Make sure on if you have 3 files, if you have 2 in research, that you do output that the code ran. And showing that output. I may drop this in the future. It depends on how this goes, right? Do push this to GitHub and just provide a link to this. Write at least 1 paragraph of your experience and reply to 2 of your fellow students. That's worth 15% of the points here. Okay, I hope this helps clarify. But again, reach out if you have any questions. Have a good one. Bye.